extra minutes.
In the aftermath of Air France Flight 447, questions have been asked throughout the entire aviation industry. Air France publicly defended their pilots and paid tribute to the dedication of all 12 aircrew who died aboard the aircraft.
You have to go back and say, so 3 experienced pilots, qualified pilots, and between them they couldn't figure out what was wrong with their airplane and why it was flying into the ocean. That's a system failure, that's not a pilot failure.
A report by French Safety and Investigation Agency, BEA, determined that the crash of Air France 447 was due to technical and human factors that began when the aircraft's speed sensors, called pitot, malfunctioned and shut down the autopilot. Thales, the manufacturer of the pitot, state the tubes had to operate under severe environmental constraints that were well outside of both the certified parameters and certification requirements. But this wasn't the first time that this type of pitot tube had failed. The European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, knew of 17 cases of pitot failure from 2003 to 2008, but state it was not reported to them that crews had difficulties in addressing the situation. The pitots had been qualified to high standards and therefore did not justify mandatory action.
Air France knew there was a problem with the pitot tubes, and by agreement they were going to phase in these replacement working pitots over a matter of months. But what they weren't going to do is to ground all their Airbus aircraft whilst these new working pitots are retrofitted. They felt that they could operate safely, in their opinion.
Airbus, who manufactures the A330, also emphasised the pitots fitted on the aircraft met all safety requirements.
All 3 pitot probes satisfied the requirements of certification, and subsequent to the accident were retested and they still satisfied. In fact, they did better than the certification limits by quite a bit.
After the crash of Air France 447, EASA made installation of new pitots compulsory. The entire Air France fleet of A330s has been equipped with the new pitots since August 2009. The investigation report also recommended improvements to A330 stall alarms and cockpit instrumentation, mainly the flight director, which is the aircraft's flight path navigational aid.
The flight director was a bit confusing. And keep in mind, we've established already that the computers were confused, that they were still tending to follow the flight director commands.
Airbus says the pilots ignored operational procedure and should have turned off the flight director as soon as they lost their airspeed readings, but they will vigorously examine all recommendations made by the BEA.
The aeroplanes themselves, they may be simple to fly, they may have automation to help you do it, they may have computers to help you calculate things with incredible accuracy, but they are immensely complex. So if anything goes wrong, it's rather like something going wrong with your computer. An airplane's just a big bunch of computers nowadays.
The question is, do pilots still have the skills to fly? Air France 447's crew were fully trained and qualified, but the French investigation recommended additional training for pilots.
To some extent, this accident was predictable. We've known for a long time that there are areas where pilots need better training, and it's not just on Airbus type of aircraft, it's on all the modern jet fleet of aircraft.
Pilots who are primarily used to using all the automatics can have their manual flying skills degraded, and this is a concern within the industry, that is happening. Therefore, if you have an unusual situation that perhaps they haven't trained for, then it does rely on a discipline and appropriate training for those pilots to be able to say, I can still fly this aeroplane.
Air France state that over the past 3 years, simulator sessions have been introduced to address onshore speed at altitude, as well as new emergency maneuvers in case of a stall situation. EASA say they are reviewing all safety recommendations made by the report and, if necessary, will then take measures to improve aircraft equipment and decide on additional training requirements.
This aircraft crashed because they didn't know what was going on. They should have known what was going on. Do I blame them? No, I blame the system, the training. The training. It's not Air France either, because Air France trains its pilots like other airlines train their pilots. It's the fact that the training that the law requires the airlines to do is all wrong. It does not address the needs of pilots flying modern, highly automated aeroplanes, and that is why Air France 447 happened.